Hi, good evening. How are you doing? Welcome to my daily live session on various topics, various tools and methods to be more precise for execution excellence by changing mindset and culture in our journey of creating world class companies and exceptional leaders. I've been speaking about one randomly picked up tool or method from my toolbox and toolkit, and that's what I've been doing every day. And then welcome to a new tool today. Let me give you a very quick recap of what I spoke yesterday. This was about the drum buffer rope method, which is the kind of a backbone and a core of theory of constraints for being able to manage the flow of production orders in any environment. And that's something which I explained yesterday, the concept of drum, buffer, and rope, which is something which one can implement in any kind of a production setup. Could be a continuous production, mass production, discrete manufacturing. So I'm sure you would have already implemented it. If you have not done that, please think of that. It's really fantastic, very commonsensical. There is no real big rocket science involved in this. It's just common sense and common science, common sense and common science. So you can try it out. And today I had spoken about the new tool, which I'm going to be talking about, a different tool, which is all about what is called as MBTI. This is again something totally different. It's nothing to do with what should I say, anything technical, anything analytical. It's something which is totally a different domain. This is neuroscience and the domain of psychology. So I'm neither a psychologist nor a neuroscientist, but my hobby are both psychology and neuroscience. So let me try to explain what MBTI is in from my perspective, from my experience. In our planet Earth, in the human race, there are multiple types of people, and people with different, what should I say, characteristics which stand out. And there are multiple types of assessments. You must have heard of psychometric analysis, psychometric tools, and a lot of them. And some which come to my mind just now would be DISC assessment, elements assessment, MBTI assessment, or what is called as enneagrams. There are multiple tools of that kind which can be used for assessing people and putting them into some kind of brackets. These kind of assessments were developed way back, I think, almost close to 100 years back by Jung. He was the one who started doing lot of research in trying to understand what kind of people exist in this human race and how do we try to classify to see if we can generalize in somewhere or other so that the relationships can be improved. That was the background with which the research started. Psychologists started doing it. And now what I'm going to be talking about today is what is called as Meyer-Briggs type indicator. I'm not sure whether you have heard of any of such assessments. Otherwise, you can Google it. It's very easy. But when you take such an assessment, be very cautious. It's always with a pinch of salt. Though there are a lot of experts and a lot of people who have been qualified to do the assessment who may speak a little otherwise. I am a person who has experienced it, used it, and then I talk from that background. I'm not really a expert in analyzing, assessing, but I have done a lot of experiments on my own in trying to do understand people, understand myself using these kind of psychometric tools. The first thing is what you need to really keep in mind, which is extremely important, is any psychometric analysis or any kind of an assessment, any kind of a simulated uh, assessment center, you can say, which is also used very popularly for leadership development, where somebody would go through various exercises, and then during those exercises, there are observers who are experienced leaders who would observe those candidates and then talk about their strengths, weaknesses, and where do they, what are their areas of improvement, etc. And any of these things, whether be it an assessment center or psychometric assessments, one needs to really take it with a pinch of salt, because the environment is not the natural environment, it's a simulated environment. Since it's a simulated environment, there is very high probability that we make choices which are not natural to us, but what we believe should be our choices. That's a kind of an expected reality of my character rather than me being what I am. And therefore, these questionnaires not always give the correct, perfect analysis. And that's something which is also known to the experts who do the analysis. So they talk about this in the beginning, and also give some guidelines as to how you should go about doing the psychometric test so that the analysis becomes as close to reality as possible. One of the hint there is don't keep thinking so much and then keep answering as you come across a question without really doing so much amount of thinking, and make the first choice that comes to your mind without really trying to analyze whether it is correct or wrong. Don't think of that. That's something which is very, very important. One needs to keep in mind. So I'm again still talking about some foundation and basics and background before I come to MBTI. I'll come to MBTI. Please have patience in that. And so these are extremely important to understand that first the psychometric assessments or assessment centers are always not really reflecting the true personality or the true character. Because I have had many cases where in the assessment center a candidate would have performed bad, or maybe he has not performed so good, whereas in his day-to-day work, the guy is outstanding or the lady is outstanding, right? And that outstanding is not only confirmed by me as a superior, but by many of my colleagues too. Similarly, there are employees of my colleagues who have performed exceptionally well in assessment center. The assessment center guy tells me that, look, these people have done a great job. He's a huge potential. But in reality, that person is really not effective at all in whatever job he's doing or she's doing. So it's always important to take it with a pinch of salt. Having been said, and I think I've expressed myself quite extensively and quite exhaustively. One is to take it with a pinch of salt. Second is it's not going to be the true reflection of the person you are. And the third is all these are very nice to have, nice methodologies, nice tools. But I want to talk about that upfront before I again enter MBTI. The most important thing is to be true to yourself, be nice to yourself, be nice to others, be kind to others. These are universal, what should I say, characteristics which have been described by various religions, various preachers, various godsmen. So be nice to yourself, be kind to others. That's most important to be successful. So therefore, these tools are good, nice to have, nice to know. But then the most important thing is be true to yourself, true to your heart. And that's something which is very, very important. So that's something which is what I wanted to just tell upfront. And in the meantime, I want to just say thanks to my friend, classmate, Sitaram, who's wished me. He must be watching it live. And the other one was Dr. Forum Mehta. Is at times aspirational. Absolutely right. Self-assessment is aspirational. There needs to be observer assessment too. Absolutely. That is very, very true, Dr. Mehta. And what is also equally important is that assessment or psychometric assessment or any kind of an assessment is a kind of a tool for motivating you to go to the next level. Not really get discouraged that you are at a particular level. It's a pathway to climb the mountain. Let us say you are climbing the mountain. When you do an assessment, you find out where is the top of the mountain and how long do you go to get there. And then it's again a motivation to start walking, continuously to keep walking. Thanks a lot, Dr. Mehta. So with that brief introduction, or not brief, a very exhaustive introduction, let me get into MBTI. MBTI talks about 4 different areas of assessment. The first one is the way we are intrinsically, the way we are built up. And maybe one more word before I get into it. So there are always in each of these 4 characteristics, 4 attributes, there are 2 variants which can exist. And these variants are something which is normally prevalent and normally visible in each one of us. However, when we really are in stressed out situation, it's a very interesting phenomenon. When we are in a very, very stressed out situation, the reverse of that will really manifest itself. That's something which you need to keep in mind. That's the fundamental principle of MBTI. You've got mirror types and normal types. Normal is when you are really not stressed out, not really in a very tight situation. And the opposite of that will get manifested when you are in a very, very stressed out situation. So it doesn't mean that just because you are an extrovert, you'll always continue to be an extrovert. Thanks a lot, Winston. Very nice of you to be complimenting and helping me continue the message. Thanks a lot, Winston. So that's something which is very, very important, that one needs to understand that these attributes which I'm talking about are what one would assess as a normal situation. And when you are in a stressed out situation, MBTI says you are mirror of that, the image of that. That means the reflection of that. The inverse of that will be in reality effective. That means somebody who's very extroverted would normally be extroverted, but when he's under tremendous amount of stress, tremendous amount of pressure, then he would become introverted. Similarly, the introverted guy would become extroverted. A very strange phenomenon. But that's because the mind, possibly, this is again my interpretation, is something which is built for survival. Built for survival. Therefore, mind will do anything to make sure that you survive, and each one of us survive. And that's the fundamental uh, purpose of the mind. That's the reason why the mind is ensuring that all our body organs are working fine and everything is doing well. So, okay, fine, excellent. So let me get back to that. 4 attributes. First is the way we are intrinsically made up of. We could either be an introvert or an extrovert. That's something easy to understand, very simple English. Introvert is somebody who is generally to himself or herself. Extrovert is somebody who would feel more energized because of people around him. And this again is another way of explaining is, how do you get your energy? Are you more energized, excited when you have people around you? Or are you more excited and energized when you're on your own, trying to do some thinking, trying to do some reflection? That's something which is very, very important. That's again something which one needs to understand. In the meantime, I just interrupt. There is Vijay Joshi. What levers do we need to drive? Yeah, I'll come back to that, Vijay. You just be listening to what I say till the MBTI is finished, and I'll come to that. So one is introverting. Introvert is somebody who's going to get that energy, get that kind of a kick when she is to himself, herself. There is a personal space, and that's the introvert and extrovert. These are the two varieties of people who exist. That is I or E. That is the way it is uh, uh, defined and explained. Then comes the next one, that is the abbreviation I or E. Then the next is, how do we really perceive the world? How is our perception? How do we perceive the reality around us? More than a world, it's the reality around us. How do we perceive? One type of people perceive the reality intuitively. That means they really don't look at any facts or data, but generally they have a fair idea as to what's going on around them, but then they connect the dots. I think you must have heard of this very popular statement by Steve Jobs of connecting the dots. You try to look at your past. There are a lot of things which come into place, and then you can make a lot of sense out of what's happening in your life, because you can see that kind of a connection happening. You can connect a lot of dots in your life, and these intuitive people perceive the reality by connecting the dots. They may not really look at the facts at all. In fact, it's horrible. Many intuitive people miss out very, very, very important details because they're not having that kind of a detail eye at all, but they can get the holistic picture very, very fast. That's the intuitive type of perception, which is basically the gut feel. The gut is what is described there. The other type, opposite to that, would be sensing type of perception, wherein I'm trying to look at facts, data, information, where unless it is physically visible, unless it is something which is an evidence which can be seen, one would not perceive the reality. The reality can only be perceived if there is information, data, and there is a lot of facts, which is something which can be validated, physically checked. And that is the other type. That is the sensors, the ones who perceive using their senses. That is the next one, which is important. That is the two different types which exist. And the third attribute is, the first one was how you are generally, how is your intrinsic chemistry? What is your way of getting energy? How are you getting energized is the first one. Second one is, how do you perceive the reality? And the third one is, how do you decide? That is something which is very, very important. What is decision making? One could be deciding based on feelings. One could be deciding based on the actual facts, actual rationale. So feelers are those people who basically decide based on their heart. You've got the heart and the mind. The feelers are the ones who decide based on the mind. Imagine that you are introverted, you are intuitive, and you decide you are a feeler, which means that you are introverted, you are to yourself, but you generally get an idea of what's happening around you because of the intuitive ability, and your decision making is based on feelings. Though you feel, though you come to know that everything around you is not so good, but if your decision making is going to hurt somebody, you're not going to take the decision at all. That is a feeler. Whereas a thinker is the other way around. That's the other extreme. There is absolutely no problem in what's happening. Whether the person gets hurt or not, it doesn't matter. As long as the information is available, you perceive the reality and you have to do something, you do it, just all. So that is a T kind of a personality, who would be a thinker. So you can have a thinker or a feeler. Thinker is somebody who's deciding constantly based on the based on the activities more from the mind rather than from the heart. So these are the two types of decision makers. Then the final one is, what is your perspective to the life? How do you see life as? How do you look at overall life as? What is your perspective to the life? That is the fourth attribute. Here there are two types: perceivers and judgers. Perceivers are those people who generally take life as it comes. They're happy-go-lucky guys. They don't have really any problem in neither giving commitments or meeting commitments. They are people who would enjoy every day the way it is, not really bothered about so much amount of tension. And these guys are people who would be possibly great artists. They can deliver outstanding performance, but no pressure, no real structure should not be there. They would like to have freedom. They would like to be just roaming around. There's no rules should not be put in there. Whereas the judges are those people who want everything to be structured, everything to be having rules, everything to be having commitments and dates. They would get really pissed off if somebody commits something and they don't turn up. In fact, it's quite interesting. You have meetings and meeting appointments, etc. is a very, very interesting theme. Imagine a situation where you are a perceiver and somebody asks you to give a commitment and confirm the Outlook meeting request. A perceiver would possibly not find it so comfortable to confirm a meeting request. Whereas a judger would find it totally nonsensical if somebody doesn't send him or her a meeting request. It can't be that you have a plan which is not structured. So this is about perceivers and judges. So coming back, there are totally 16 types, each having two variants: introvert or extrovert, intuitive or sensor in terms of perception, feelers or thinkers in terms of decision making, and perceivers or judges when it comes to the way you look at the world, way you look at the life. These are the four types of attributes. And with these four types of attributes, there are totally 16 types in MBTI. INTJ. Actually, I need to correct that. Intuitive, it should be N. I'll do that. And tomorrow when I show that, I would have put a new slide. It's a learning for me. N is what is the abbreviation for intuitive. INTJ is introvert, intuitive, thinker, and judger. Or let us say you could have ESFP, which would be extrovert, sensor, and a feeler and a perceiver. So and then there are a lot of research books. You can read it. I must have read quite a few books on this because I was quite excited in understanding how people are. But finally, I came to the conclusion that what is important is you being kind to yourself, kind to others, and that's all that matters. Because we are all different. Each one of us are different. I keep talking about that when I speak about mindset. Our mindset is made based on our past memories, and those memories are unique for each one of us. So it cannot be that somebody is the same. Even if you have got two ENTJs or ENFPs or ISTJs, they're identical. Never the case. Each one is totally unique. And that's something which is what one needs to understand. Therefore, I spent a little amount of time in the beginning talking about the validity and the correctness and the usefulness of such an assessment. It's okay to really get an idea, to really understand how people are, what do they do. But you can't really say that, look, I am an introvert and there is somebody who's an extrovert, so I can't talk to him, or I can't talk to him. Let me use some phrases. There are a lot of books of that kind, a lot of books. So please be a little cautious in reading and then just following those books. Try to experiment them in small steps. If you really succeed, then use them. Otherwise, be a little cautious, because what can really work is being kind to yourself, being kind to others. That works. That's a universal accepted phenomenon. Other things, you should be a little cautious and careful. Now I come to answering two questions. One was from Vijay Joshi, who said, for new thinking, what levers we need to drive? That question I will first answer. See, for new thinking to happen, thinking is something which is driven by our perception, by our past experiences, emotional experiences, and emotional memories. These two develop what is called as a framework, and this framework is nothing other than mindset. And the mindset is the one that is continuously driving real-time predictions in our mind, in our subconscious mind. And these predictions, you can have a look, research on your own, for what is called as readiness potential or Bereitschaft's potential. And this is something which was done by research by a German psychologist by name Kornhuber. And there the basic research shows that 500 milliseconds before we execute anything, before we really do anything, the subconscious mind already has planned his action in totality. Whereas consciously we come to know of that particular preparation 200 milliseconds before we execute the action. Therefore, we have a very, very small time window to recognize that something is going to happen and then stop it or maybe change it. that can be done, but it is extremely difficult. Imagine doing that in real-time basis. Constantly, if you have to keep track of what's happening in your mind and constantly changing that, it's just humanly impossible. There are definitely very few in this world who have possibly dominated the way they perceive reality, the way they understand the world. They must have been doing a lot of meditation. Some of the gurus, sannyasis, and all those saints and doyens of meditation, maybe they can do that. But for a normal man, most of the time, we are not having any free will at all, because our entire activity of perceiving the reality, thinking by connecting the dots, then decision making, and finally acting or responding is all being driven by these predictions which are originating from the mindset. That is the fundamental understanding and my experiential learning which I have till now. And therefore, any thinking to be changed, you need to have a different experience. Unless you experience something differently, the thinking will not change. And that's my conviction, a very, very strong conviction, that thinking can only change if you experience differently. Only with new experiences will new thinking come. Because there is no point in reading. Reading is something, it's not experience. Learning is not experience. Attending a training program is not experience. Experiencing is doing it. Experiencing is where you are trying to try out something, experiment something. That is experience. When you do that, then you start thinking differently, because that experience is what that drives the mindset, and the mindset would get changed. And only when the mindset change, the predictions change, only then can you think differently. Otherwise, your thinking also is driven by the same mindset. Nothing much will happen. That's my take on this particular topic. And then Winston spoke about point of normality. Absolutely right. You're all doyens. I'm really a very, very small beginner here, so please pardon me for that. And thanks a lot for watching. I'm sure today's topic was quite exciting to me, because this is some area where I felt that as an engineer, you really can build systems, and I always wanted to have a solution as to how you can make sure that these systems are duplicated so that everybody in the world can talk about this. Everybody can use this, and that's where I discovered using neuroscience, and that's how I developed DuHaw. DuHaw is a methodology basically for changing the mindset using these principles which I'm talking about. And that I can speak about on some other day, or you can check in Google or YouTube and then check it out. Or you can also write to me. I would be more than happy to answer. My email is, let me just show you, dinakar@samutana.com. You can write to me and I'll be more than happy to answer your queries. So with that, let me just give you a very, very brief insight into what am I going to be talking tomorrow. Let me talk about that. What is my tomorrow's topic? Tomorrow's topic is something which is very, very known to everybody. It is called as Kaizen. I think you must have heard of this. Kaizen stands for continuous improvement. It's a Japanese word. And Kaizen is what I'm going to be talking about tomorrow, which is continual improvement. So let's see what it is. My experiences with Kaizen. I'm not talking about what Kaizen is. Kaizen, possibly many people know that. I'll be talking about Kaizen. Looking forward to seeing you tomorrow again. Thanks a lot for watching. And for those of you in India, have a nice evening. For those of you outside India, have a great day ahead. And see you tomorrow, more or less the same time, 8:30 Indian Standard Time. Goodbye.